So do yourself a favour, check out the Carlisle Cult Cinema Club, and don't forget not just to rate it, but also to subscribe on YouTube or Facebook.
Hi, I'm Ian Ogilvy, and you're watching the Carlisle Cult Cinema Club.
Welcome to the Carlisle Cult Cinema Club presents Ian Ogilvy. He graduated from RADA and is a critically acclaimed stage actor. He has 152 IMDb credits to his name, 117 as an actor, Witchfinder, General, Return of the Saint, I, Claudius, We Still Kill the Old Ways, amongst others. 32 as yourself, Talking Head, talk shows, etc. One as a writer on the upcoming Measle and Rathmonk. One as a makeup artist, and one thanks to, and also a writer of novels and children's books. Please welcome to the show, Ian Ogilvy, a British acting legend. Thank you for being here. It is an absolute honour. And and we've had to do that intro again because I'm an idiot and wasn't recording. You worked for 6 months at the age of 17 as a stage manager with the Royal Court Theatre in London before going on to train at RADA. You've done an incredible amount of work on the stage, but we're concentrating on your TV and film work here. You've said that you made a lot of rotten films and very few passable ones, and I'd have to disagree with that.
Well, when I said I made a lot of films, of course, I just was in them. And it wasn't my choice whether they were bad or not. But the fact is, any actor in a longish career would probably say the same thing. We've all made some stinkers, and it has to be admitted, some of them are stinkers, and some of them were pretty good, and most of them were kind of middle of the road, weren't they, really?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've watched quite a lot of the films that you've been in over this last week on research for this interview, and obviously it was kind of Michael Reeves that set you on your screen journey. You've done a couple of shorts for him to start with, and then 1966, The She Beast, a newlywed English tourist and an eccentric Transylvania count must work together when the former's beautiful wife is made bodily host for a horrific witch. And I watched this for the first time at the beginning of the week, and that was my cup of tea. Loved it.
Well, I would list that as one of the stinkers. I'll tell you why. It was my first movie. It was Mike Reeves's first movie. We were all beginners. We didn't really know what we were all doing. And also, because there was a lot of interference from producers and things, there were some bizarre moments in it, which I think spoiled the whole thing entirely. Those ridiculous comedy chases with an unexplained person. I thought that they were just awful and should never have been in the movie. Also, I think quite a lot of the script was a bit iffy, but I mean, it's not a movie I hate. It's just that it's difficult for me to watch it because I was very young and shallow and very new to it all, and I was pretty terrible in it. And I think it's still a pretty terrible movie, but. It was the beginning of Mike Reeves' career, and he went on to make two crackers. So we should all be forgiven, shouldn't we, really?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've watched all the Mike Reeves movies, but we'll get to them as we come to them. But is it right that you'd been friends since you were teenagers?
Yeah, we were introduced by a mutual friend. We weren't at school together, but we were introduced by a mutual friend who said, look, I've got this friend who likes making movies, and I know you want to be an actor. Why don't I get you two together? So he introduced, we were about 15 when we met. And I went to stay with him and his mum and some friends of his, and we all made a little movie called, I think, Carrion, which is now long lost, and all black and white, 8mm movie camera. And then the next year, I went back and we did it again, but this time with 16mm and a bit more equipment. And then he and I lost touch while he went off into other things, and I finished school and I went to drama school and all the rest. And then one day when I was in my early 20s, my agent called me up and he said, do you know somebody called Mike Reeves? I said, yes, I do. And she said, well, he's offering you the lead in a movie. Well, and that was really it. After that, we became great friends again, and continued until his untimely death at the age of 25.
which was a big shame as well.
Mm.
Then after She Beast, you were in Stranger in the House or Cop Out with
Mm-hmm.
Mason, and what a film that is! Excellent, and you are superb in it for being so early in your career. And James Mason is fantastic.
Well, okay. Again, I'm going to disagree with you. I think that's one of the stinkers. You see, and it is interesting, isn't it, that after all, it does star James Mason. But when have you ever seen it on TV? It's never played, and the reason is
No,
it's really very good. He was great in it. I think he was wonderful in it. But all of us youth, the trouble was, it was packed with all sorts of little, I don't know, salutes to youth and salutes to youth of that particular period in time, which meant that within about a year, the movie became terribly dated and slightly laughable, all of us being terribly hip, but not. All that youth stuff I thought was just embarrassing, frankly. And thank you for saying I was okay in it. But again, it's not a movie I can watch at all anymore.
it's that part where you've been discovered,
Yeah.
because you're playing the part of the suave but dastardly Desmond Flowers, and
Mm.
you've been discovered as for what you've done, and it's when you get that breakdown right at the end. I thought it was superb.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
And I thoroughly a first time watch, and thoroughly enjoyed it.
I
Um,
How you managed to find a copy of it? It's pretty much dead and gone, I think, isn't it? But did you manage to find it?
no, I think it's had a Blu-ray release and everything on one of the
Really?
boutique labels.
Oh, right. Okay. I suppose
So,
everything surfaces sooner or later somewhere, doesn't it? Really?
well, it does. I know She Beasts had a couple of good releases of it as well. Um, Coming to 1967, The Sorcerers. Um, Aging hypnotist creates a device that allows its users to control the mind of another, and you're that other. Um, and you playing opposite the brilliant Boris Karloff, and basically playing as Boris Karloff in a way as well.
Yes, absolutely. In a way, his thoughts and his desires and things. Yeah.
And again, a fantastic film. That stunt where you're fighting with Alan and you go through the door. Did you actually do that?
Yeah. But again, that wasn't real glass. That's what was called sugar
No.
glass. It's
Yes.
a substance made out of, oddly enough, I think it's made out of sugar. But it's a very fine sheet of stuff which doesn't cut. So, and it goes to powder. You may notice that when we're rolling around on the ground, for some reason, this glass door has turned into a white powder. That's an indication of that we've used sugar glass. So, yeah, listen, with Mike Reeves, you pretty much did all your own stunts if you could. If you were up to it, you were able to do it, he would expect you to do it, simply because he didn't have the money for stuntmen. And he'd rather you did it yourself. Yeah, so yes, all that
And you
motorcycle
could,
and things. Yeah,
oh, it was excellent. And that car exploding at the end, absolutely just superb. And it's a film because I'm an old monster kid. Boris Karloff being in it, I've watched multiple times and thoroughly enjoy all of Reeves. What was Boris Karloff like to work with?
he was a very sweet, kind, very old man. He wasn't very old enough. It's funny. I've just discovered I'm actually older now than Boris was when he made that film. So, but he wasn't very well. His leg bothered him. He had awful arthritis, I think. But he was very game. He would do anything you wanted him to do. He was just a charmer, really, and quite funny. I remember sitting with him behind the flat, waiting for the cue to come for our entrance, and it went on and on and on while they did some relighting and things. He was just sitting there in this dusty little dark area. And after about 20 minutes, he turned to me and he said, by the time they get this shot, I should probably be dead. He did the little thing which was rather sweet. But he was a lovely man, and didn't complain once. He was asked to crawl around on a floor and have horrible makeup put all over him and things. And he was just a lovely old guy, really. Yeah. I once asked him. I plucked up the courage to have a conversation with him about typecasting. I said, when you played the monster, did you feel after that you were typecast for the rest of your life? And he went, it was the happiest day of my life. He said, up until that time in Hollywood, they didn't know what to do with me. I played all sorts of ridiculous roles, and all of a sudden I got this part. And then everybody knew what to do with me. And he said it meant I was employed for the rest of my life, doing splendid work. He said, everybody is typecast. Everybody is typecast in one way or another. And he said, but being typecast, there's nothing wrong with that at all. So.
And I wouldn't have said he was typecast as a monster. Typecast as a horror.
Yes.
He became a horror icon.
Yeah. And, he always never made a horror film in his life. He said, I made fantasy films and scary films. He said, but horror is a word he hated. He said horror to him is a child run over by a bus with a bloody smear across the road and the cameras lovingly devoted to looking at it. He said, that's horror. What I do is silly, fun, fantasy, scary stuff. He said, not horror. He hated the word horror film.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's a great story, that's fantastic. And then that was 1967. Then you got to be in Michael Reeves' final film, the brilliant Witchfinder General with Vincent Price. You play a young Roundhead who goes on to seek revenge on the wicked Witchfinder General, who's basically terrorized your fiancée and killed her uncle. And what a superb film!
Yeah, that I think is good. That one, I'm proud of that one. Yeah, and it's also become a cult movie. I mean, something when we were making it, we had no idea, of course, would happen, but it has among cinema buffs become a real cult movie. That one, yeah, but much talked about. And I know people like Rob Zombie, for instance, is one of his favorite movies. Yeah, I mean, it's become a point of fascination among movie people. Yeah.
Yeah, again, another I was always a fan of. I can remember my dad getting us up to watch it on TV and telling us you like this. And I was already a Vincent Price fan.
I hope you weren't too young when you got you up, because it was considered extremely violent in its day. Of course, it's not now.
I'll have been 5 or 6 when I seen it. Yeah.
So, watch that. Bloody hell.
So yeah, I was just a youngster. I was a monster kid. I grew up watching the Universal Monsters, and then when VHS came around, I was into the video nasties and all before I was 10-year-old.
Right.
No censorship in my household. So what was it like work? I know you didn't share a lot of scenes with Vincent Price, but what was it like working with him?
Well, you're right. I mean, if you look at the movie, I have almost nothing to do with Vincent. Our stories run parallel. But we never meet. We meet briefly at the very beginning on horseback, and then at the end when we try and kill each other. So all the rest of the time we're separated by yards and miles of Suffolk countryside. So working with him was fine. It wasn't fine on the last night when I kill him or he tries to kill me, simply because we had an extremely huge amount of work to do and a very, very short time to do it. And Vincent chose that day to turn up slightly drunk, belligerent and argumentative. And it was a very, very difficult evening. And Mike said to me at one point, it's a well-known story, I have to chop him up with an axe. And I had this big rubber axe. It was rubber, but it was hard rubber. You didn't want to get hit by it too hard.
Yeah.
Mike came up to me and he said, I want you to hit him. I want you to hit him as hard as you bloody well can. This was just vindictive and revenge. You know? I said, Mike, I'm not going to do that. I mean, I'm not hurt Vincent Price for him. He said, no, go on. Well, of course I didn't. But Vincent, I knew Vincent best socially in the evenings. We all stayed at a hotel in Bury St Edmunds. And in the evenings, we'd all get together and all have dinner together and sit at the bar. And Vincent loved sitting at the bar, being surrounded by young English actors and telling stories about Hollywood. And he was a very entertaining, very amusing man. told wonderful stories, and none of which, of course, I can remember. It's too long ago. But on that basis, he was a delight. But he could be difficult, and I knew he could be difficult because Mike, who was my friend, would sometimes tell me that he was having a difficult time with Vincent, but I never saw it. I was not party to it, really, and my experience of him was lovely. It was fine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's well documented that they didn't get on, and Michael Reeves didn't want him to start with,
Yeah.
wanted Donald Pleasance in the role, but the studio were like, no, you've got to have Vincent Price.
Yeah.
But what a film. It's absolutely superb.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And some of it was accidental. You know, I mean, the whole ending. There were in the script. The original ending was, I think, he and I meet in a gypsy encampment at some later date and have a fight. But the whole Orford Castle thing ended because we just ran out of time and ran out of money. And the reason why it ends with Hilary's Dwyer's screams echoing around the corridors of ancient Orford Castle is simply because we ran out of time and money. But it turned out to be rather a good ending, rather a bleak, and it's always been described as a bleak ending, and it was very bleak, but it was there by accident, really.
Oh yeah, I mean when the screams of Sarah right at the end, and it kind of freeze frames on that, just excellent ending, and again, yourself absolutely superb in it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And I had it. Is it right? You broke your toe while filming a fight scene.
Yeah, in the bar with Robert Russell. Yeah, I did. It was my fault, really. The stuntman showed me how to do it. Jump off a table and crash down onto the actor. And I did it right about 5 times. And on the sixth time, I did it wrong and I broke my toe. So I did sit on a horse a lot. Yeah, so it wasn't bad. Those high leather boots I had to wear they held the foot very tightly. So it was almost like ass on my foot. It still was kind of painful walking around, but man, trying to conceal the limp. Yeah.
And then a couple of years later, that's a brilliant story. You were also in the fantastic Waterloo, based on Napoleon Bonaparte and the big fight. And you played Delancey, who basically repeats every line Christopher Plummer's Duke of Wellington says. So that must have been quite an easy role.
Yes, it was quite. In that sense, it was quite fun, really. It was a long period of time with very little to say, but that was the same for all of us, really. Apart from Rod Steiger and Christopher Plummer, really, we all had these little roles. But it was an extraordinary experience. That was. We were in Ukraine, near a town called Uzhgorod, and at that time, of course, Ukraine was part of the USSR. It was and they had spent 2 years preparing the battlefield. It was an American, Russian, Italian co-production, and it was just an enormous movie with tens of thousands of extras and the Red Army, in fact, we had, and it was an extraordinary experience.
It was always one of those films that would be shown on a bank holiday.
Yeah.
Back when I was a kid, so I can always remember it. And yeah, just a great film. And we're back into the realms of horror and the scary with and now the Screaming starts from 1973. 1795, young Catherine, just married to Charles Fenn Griffin, moves into his castle and becomes a victim of a curse. And again, fantastic film. And these are the films I grew up watching, you see.
Right. Yeah, that was fun. I mean, yeah. Yes, with Stephanie Beecham, who's an old friend of mine, and Herbert Lom, of course, and Peter Cushing, with whom I made a couple of movies, was a very dear man. I'm very proud of the fact that of the 4 great horror icons, Boris Karloff, Christopher Lee, Vincent Price, and Peter Cushing, I worked with 3 of them. I never worked with Christopher Lee, which was a pity, but I did work with the other 3, and I'm proud of that fact.
You know, something, I've got that written down as you must have read my mind. I've got that written down as a question that you'd worked with 3, but you never got to work with Christopher Lee, because I went right through looking to see if you had, but you'd never worked with Christopher Lee. So you've just read my mind there. But again, wasn't Michael Reeves supposed to direct that one as well?
No, no, because this was some time later. I
Right.
don't think. No, this was just one of the amicus. People said, "Oh, you used to do those Hammer films." I never worked for Hammer at all, not once. But the movies I did make were of that sort. Were made by a film company called Amicus, which was like a rival to Hammer.
Yes.
And they made slightly. They were more puritanical about nudity, Amicus. They didn't like it. And in fact, when Stephanie Beacham first appeared, she had rather a diaphanous night dress on, and the producer said, "No, no, no, it has to be thicker than that. We don't want to see any of that." And they got her a new costume, really. But apart from that, they were very similar to Hammer, and they made the same kind of movies, really. But they just had a thing about nudity.
And well, yeah, because you made obviously From Beyond the Grave, which we'll get to in a minute. Before we talk about the brilliant comedy farce you made, No Sex Please We're British, with Ronnie Corbett, and a cast and crew of comedy greats, really.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. Well, that was No Sex Please We're British had been a very, very successful play in the West End.
Yes.
It run for years and years and years and years. And the trouble with the movie is when it came out, a lot of people thought it was a pornographic film, or was because of the title. And it didn't do very well at the box office for that reason. But in fact, I thought it was quite a good little movie, really, and not bad. I'm proud of being in that one, but nobody's ever seen it. You can, I believe, rent it now on Amazon Prime. You can finally see it, but I believe you. I don't know if that's true or not.
Again, me loving British comedy as well, and living in the 80s in Britain, 4 channels, you watched anything that was on, and I liked Ronnie Corbett, and that's when I first saw it, and I've watched it a few times since, and it's a wonderful little farce.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it? Yeah. And we rehearsed it, unlike most movies. We spent I think maybe 2 or even 3 weeks rehearsing it like a play, so that when we came to shoot it with the crew, we knew the actors. We all knew exactly what we were doing, and it made life a lot easier just for getting it done and for the time element. But it was a good way of making a movie like that. In fact, I think when you film a farce, I think you have to rehearse it as though you're making it as a play.
Oh, definitely. And Ronnie Corbett was excellent as your little sidekick and foil.
Yes.
And I mean,
Yeah.
Arthur Lowe, I mean, everybody involved was really, they'd all been at the top of their game,
Right.
comedy wise, when it came out. And it's just a great fun watch.
Well, the star of the play had been Michael Crawford, and it was in that play that he developed his character for Some Mothers Do Have 'Em. That strange little character he developed
Yeah.
for the TV series, very very brilliant, very funny TV series. And I saw the play with Michael Crawford, and I don't think I've laughed as much ever before or since. He was completely brilliant. But when it came to make the film, there was some disagreement between him and the producers about the nature of what to do with the movie. And eventually they went, well, okay, you don't seem very keen. So they offered it to Ronnie Corbett, who I thought did a wonderful job, but it was very different from what Michael Crawford would have done. Michael Crawford, you would have seen Michael Crawford doing his Some Mothers Do Have 'Em character, which
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
very well. But I think Ronnie was superb in it. I think he was really, really very funny indeed, and anchors that film beautifully.
Oh, Ronnie Corbett is just, one of those funny men who you got to be in the two Ronnies with later on, but we'll talk to that about when we get to it. Then 1974, From Beyond the Grave, Amicus anthology film, where you get to star opposite Peter Cushing again, and really you're the only honest person in the entire film.
Yes, it's a fun idea. It's the old antique shop owner who gets visited by various people, all of whom cheat him while they're making their purchases. They cheat him, and they are visited by some horrible curses and things because of this. But I'm the only one who it turns out doesn't cheat him, and so I live happily ever after. Yeah.
And the Amicus anthology films are films I watch at least once a year. all of
Right.
them. Again, grew up on them. Me and one of my friends, if either of us watching them, like I did yesterday, I sent him a photo, screenshot, and I went, "What am I watching?" And he'd straight away got back from Beyond the Grave, and he went, "I only watched it a couple of weeks ago myself." So yeah, it's a one, because I'm a massive horror film fan, and again, these were the films I grew up watching, so I revisit and revisit and revisit. And yours is a great little story, and you survive, which is, you know,
Yes.
brilliant as well. And I think
Yeah.
it shows you as a likable actor. You're always likable in everything I've ever seen you in. You're always very
Oh,
likable, and I think that also comes across in the From Beyond the Grave. Maybe that's why you survived. You were chosen to survive. Then 1976, Ripping Yarns, Tompkinson's School Days, where you're the pompous and sardonic school bully, the head boy. Um, just again, brilliant.
well, we were all such fans of Monty Python. Everybody was, and the idea of actually getting to work with any of those guys, I jumped at the chance. It was such a fun show as well, such a fun job, and they were really nice. And Michael and Terry were just charming, and had done a wonderful job of writing this thing. And this was the original, the very first of the Ripping Yarns was the one I did. And Michael told me that that they had done it as a one-off. They took the idea of doing a send-up of Tom Brown's School Days to the BBC.
Yeah.
Yes, we love the idea. Do it. Go ahead and do it. So they did it, and then the BBC said, "Right now, we want a series." And Michael went, "A series? What? What do you mean a series? This is a one-off film." And they went, "No, no. Surely you can make a series with the same idea." So they finally got the idea of doing a thing based on all those kind of schoolboy stories from the Edwardian and Victorian period. But to be honest, there weren't that many. They had to make up a lot of them, really. But that was the thing. It was actually designed only as a one-off, and then it became a series, and it gave them headaches. I know that, but it was very successful. It's been a very popular show that forever.
Again, love me comedy, love the Pythons. I've watched Ripping Yarns so many times, so it's another I can watch anytime. 1976, you make one of the most iconic British TV shows of all time. You're not in it very long, I know, but I Claudius,
Mm.
and I know you're only in it for a few episodes, aren't you? Playing the father of I Claudius.
Very beginning, yes, yes. I'm at the very beginning, and I play Claudius's father, and to this day, Derek Jacobi calls me Dad when we meet, which is nice.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that must have been an incredible show to be on.
It was. Well, I'd worked with the director, Herbie Wise, who was one of the greats of all time, a great television director. And I'd done several things with him. And Herbie was one of those lovely directors who, when he liked you, he would use you again. And he had a kind of stable, a repertoire of actors that he liked. And I was one of them, which was nice. And Derek, of course, was one of them, in a different way, I suppose. So I was able, when I heard about I, Claudius, and I read the books and I loved them, I was able to call up Herbie Wise and say, "Herbie, I hear you doing I, Claudius, can I be in it?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Oh, good. Can I play Caligula?" He said, "No." And I said, "Why not?" Because John Hurt's playing Caligula. I went, "Oh, okay. What can I play?" He said, I've got you down as Drusus." I said, "Who's Drusus?" He said, he's Claudius's father and probably the only sane person living in Rome at that time. So that was my introduction to that character. And it was just a straightforward, nice guy, really. It was a nice guy part, but I was very happy to be in it because I thought to myself, "I, Claudius, this is going to be a big one." And indeed it was. It's remained, again, huge in terms of audience popularity and fame. And yeah.
Still iconic as ever. And it's they've never really been able to redo it properly to that scale, I don't think.
No. No. And I mean, people are fascinated by the camera work. I remember seeing a documentary recently where they're talking about the extraordinary brilliance of the camera work. One of the examples being when Augustus, played by Brian Blessing, is giving a real dressing down, bitter, angry dressing down to a group of senators, all of whom have been screwing his daughter. And he never shows that he just has a line of these senators, and it's all shot from the backs of their heads. So everything is on Brian Blessed, but between their heads, and it can be as he walks down the line of senators, the camera walks with him, pans, but you don't see their faces. It's just extraordinary. You just see the backs of their heads. It's all on Brian. And people comment on the genius of this kind of camera work that Herbie Wise did, and I think it's true. I think it was wonderful.
Yeah, an incredible TV show. Moving swiftly along, because I don't want to keep you too much. 1978, Return of the Saint, replacing Roger Moore. You know, that white Jaguar, I had the toy when I was a kid growing up. You know, it was a massive show at the time.
Yeah.
How did that kind of come along?
I tell you exactly how. Bob Baker, who was the producer, he produced Roger's The Saint all the way through the 1960s, and he wanted to revive it after Roger had gone, but it took him a little time to get anybody interested. And while he was doing it, his wife saw me in Upstairs Downstairs, which was another iconic show that I did. And she said to Bob, look, he would be quite good for The Saint. I think the reason she said it was because I had a very slight resemblance to Roger Moore, really. And so I had an interview with Bob. He called me in and he said, if I can get this Saint going, would you like to do it? I said, sure. So I then didn't hear from him for another 6 years. And then my agent called and he said, Bob Baker's called. They've got a green light and they want you to do The Saint. And it was as simple as that. I didn't audition for it. It was really on the recommendation of his wife, of Bob Baker's wife. And that's how I got the part.
Do you know something? You've been answering the questions I was going to ask you, because I had that down in the question, how you got the part. So this is brilliant. No, it's great. And it was a shame you only got 26 episodes. And it was all because of Raise the Titanic, I believe.
Well, it was to do with our major producer, the man who commissioned it, Lou Gray, Lord Lou, who he'd produced the original TV show with Roger, and Bob Baker persuaded him to do it with me. But it was very expensive, our show, much more expensive than Roger's. So we went abroad. We used locations. Roger nearly spent all the time in the studio and on the studio backlot. He never really went on location at all. We did. We went to France, we went to Italy, we went all over the place. It was expensive. And Lou at the time had this thing that he wanted to be a movie director, a movie producer, not a television producer. So he took a lot of the profits from his shows, cancelled them all, including mine, and put all this money into film production, none of which worked. Nearly all of his movies were complete disasters. And indeed, his entire company was taken over by a South African businessman called Robert Holmes à Court. And Lou was out on his ear. He was fired, essentially. But that's why my show was cancelled. It was cancelled along with a lot of others because Lord Lou Gray wanted to make movies and wanted to get out of the television business. My show was successful. It was sold in 70 countries all around the world and all that stuff. And we needn't have spent that much money on the second series. We needn't have gone to Italy and France at all. We could have just stayed in Southall, frankly, done the whole thing there. But that's why it got cancelled, I believe. Yeah, it was expensive as well. And I don't think Lord Gray liked the cost of it either. Yeah.
What did it feel like to replace Roger Moore in one of his kind of most iconic roles?
Yeah. Well, the nice thing was it wasn't overnight. It was some years between Roger Moore leaving and me. I mean, a long time had passed.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I didn't really feel like I was stepping into anybody's shoes, really. Also, there was some idea at the beginning that they might call it Son of the Saint, and have Roger appear every now and again. But I don't think Roger wanted to do that. And also, I was a bit too old to be Roger's son, to be honest, and Roger was too young to be my father. And so I think a lot of it was the debate as to would anybody accept a new saint? Well, it was pointed out to them that, in fact, Roger wasn't the first saint. There'd been lots of saints before Roger. Tom Conway, Vincent Price had done it on the radio. George Sanders had been the saint. They had lots of saints before Roger Moore. So to have a new saint was nothing new.
No.
So that's why they called it Return of the Saint. But it was originally going to be Son of the Saint.
And it was iconic. I can remember one of my mates had a clicker toy, and it was the Saint car and a gun, and you clicked it, and the car moved and things like that. I just had the little die-cast Saint car, which was proper cool, and we all loved it. Is it right? Roger did turn up on set to visit.
We were in Italy. I'd met him before. I'd had lunch with him, actually, and he was always very charming and sweet to me. He sent me a lovely good luck telegram on the first day saying good luck. But then we were in Italy and we're shooting something, and all of a sudden Roger simply turned up. He was driving through Italy and he turned up on the set, and we spent a lovely evening together, a whole crew, because of course he knew all the crew. They were all the same crew that he'd had, so they were all good friends. So about 5 or 6 of us had a very drunk evening, which went on into the early hours. And eventually I got to bed, and I had an early call. So I was up at 7 with a terrible hangover, and I met the director of photography, Frankie Watts, who was our lighting that guy, in the car park. And he looked pretty awful too. I feel terrible. I said, so do I, Frankie, awful. Then all of a sudden we heard this, hello, chaps, good morning. And there's Roger, looking absolutely fine. It's like as though he'd had 9 hours sleep and hadn't had anything to drink at all the night before. And we both had decided at that moment that we kind of hated Roger Moore, but not obviously not really. But yeah, that was our meeting with Roger Moore during the shooting of the Saint. Otherwise, he had nothing to do with us, really.
That's a great story. Roger Moore turns up, usually all hungover, and is
Yeah.
fine. Mind you, he was supposedly a bit of a drinker back in the day, so he's probably handling it quite well. And you won the TV Times Most Compulsive Character Award as well, I believe, for The Saint. And now, I believe you were considered for the Bond role, talking of Roger Moore and The Saint. We've got to throw that into the mix.
Yeah, I mean, very, very briefly, if I was at all. There was a period when Roger was going to give it up, when the newspapers, when they had a slow day, would do stories about who's going to be the new James Bond. In fact, you may have noticed they've done it all the time. They've always got who's the new James.
Yeah.
They did it back then, and I was just among the list. There was Lewis Collins, there's me, there was all sorts of people on that list. Mike Kitchen was on it. Anybody who was that sort of age and personable, I guess, was on it. I was then told by an executive from the American company that privately and very, very kindly, he said, I suspect you might like to know. He said, we have considered you. And he said, to be honest, if we wanted another Roger Moore, you'd be it. But we don't want another Roger Moore. We actually want another Sean Connery. And I was very happy because I didn't really think I was right for Bond. And I was also happy to know for sure. So whenever I was asked by the press, are you going to be the new James Bond? I was able to say categorically, no, I know I'm not in the new James Bond. And that's fine, you know. But
I think you would have made a decent Bond, to be honest.
Physically, I'm kind of a much lighter weight guy than these other guys. I stand next to Roger. I used to stand next to Roger Moore, head and shoulders bigger than me. Matt, big guy. Tim Dalton, big man, tall, much taller than me. They all had more weight, more heft than I did, you know. And I always thought that some of the fight scenes in The Saint, when my fight scenes were a little bit ridiculous. Some huge man would come towards me with like a I don't know, a golf club or something, and I'd go, John, he'd fall over, and that would be it, really. And I go, really? But so I always thought to myself, I'm not sure I'd make a particularly good Bond, really.
And Timothy Dalton's my favourite Bond, by the way. You mentioned Timothy there. Here's my favourite Bond.
Right.
I think he was excellent in the role.
Yeah, he was terrific. Absolutely, I agree. Yeah.
Now, I believe you once met the Queen and had a conversation about her horse, Bombardier.
You know, I got that wrong. Her name, the horse, the name wasn't name of the horse wasn't Bombardier. It was something else. I can't remember what the name of the horse was. Yes, I was in a tent, a hospitality tent at Windsor during the polo matches. Prince Charles was playing, and I was just a guest. And the tent was pretty empty when I was there. There were about 10 people in there drinking, having a champagne, and all of a sudden the Queen came in with an equerry, and she had a headscarf and muddy Wellington boots and tweeds. And she was standing there, and I thought, oh, there's the Queen. I better not stare. So I turned my back on her and went on drinking my champagne. And then I got a tap on the shoulder, and it was the equerry. And he said, Mr. Ogilvy, would you like to meet the Queen? And I thought, oh, poor woman, she's had so much to, she's always meeting bloody people. I went, no, that's fine. He went, no. And his eyes got quite narrow. And he went, no. Would you like to meet the Queen? I realized it was a summons, not an invitation. So I was led over, and she was very nice, and I was introduced. And I thought to myself, this poor woman is always, you're not supposed to ask her questions, or you're not supposed to open the conversation. She has to always do it. And it's usually like, did it take you long to get here? And that sort of thing. She used to ask. I thought, I'm going to try it. So I thought, what's she like? And I thought, oh, I know, she likes horses. So I said to her, and this is the wrong name, I know, but I said to her, ma'am, I've often wondered whatever happened to Bombardier, Bombardier being her famous horse, her ceremonial horse that she rode when she was doing Trooping in the Colour. Again, the name of the horse is wrong. Yeah. And her lit up, because I'd asked her a question that she actually would enjoy answering. And she told me this. She said, I've just met him. I've just been to see him. He lives at Windsor. He's very, very old now, but we're great friends. I always go and take him an apple. Every day when I'm at Windsor, I go and take him an apple. And the same today, I took him his apple, and I went into the field, and I shut the gate behind me, and there he was. He came trotting over, and I had the apple. I was feeding him the apple, and all of a sudden, she said, I heard this awful noise. It was the sound of thundering hooves. And she said, I looked up, and coming at me at full gallop was this stallion with his teeth bared and his ears laid back and his eyes red with rage. He was charging towards me. And she said, I dropped the apple and I ran. And she said, I ran and I got to the gate and I opened it and I shut it just in time. And she said, you know, you very nearly lost your sovereign, she said. And then I got a tap on the shoulder and the equerry led me away. And that was it. But that's my Queen story, yes. She actually told me a story, which I think was rather nice.
I think that's brilliant. And the Queen wanted to meet you as well. So that's...
Yeah, she probably looked around the room and she went, oh, now who am I supposed to talk to there? Who's that? And the equerry probably said, that's Ian Ogilvy, the actor. She said, oh, he might be interesting. Probably was the conversation.
But still, you know what I mean? That's a great story. I love that. And God bless our old Queen. She was a great ruler. Now, I've got to talk to you about, you did both Morecambe and Wise and the two Ronnies. What can you tell me about working with Morecambe and Wise to start with?
I did two Morecambe and Wise shows, actually. I did a very, very early one where I'd just been the Saint. And so I was very famous at the time. And I literally did a walk-on. But the reaction was lovely. The reaction was quite big from the audience, right? So they went, oh, we better have him on as a special guest. So that's why I did that with Susanna York and I. And Sir Ralph Richardson was also the great theatrical knight, was on it as well. And they were lovely. Eric said, if you want to see any old Morecambe Wise, I've got tapes of them. If you were really... They were both charming and they were both loved having guests. But Sir Ralph puzzled Eric a bit. Eric came to me one day and he said, I don't quite understand what Sir Ralph is up to. I said, what is it? He said, he keeps asking me why I should say that line. And I said, well, Eric, what do you say to him? I said, well, sir, he said, it's Sir Ralph, it's funny. And Ralph goes, oh, is it funny? Oh, I didn't realize. And Eric, I think Sir Ralph is teasing you. He said, I think he's having you on. Oh, the old bugger. No, that was great fun. And the other thing they said to Sir Ralph, who was very old at the time, they said to him, you know that bit at the end, with the dancing bit, They said to Ralph, "You don't have to do that, Ralph. If you don't want, you don't have to do that." So Ralph said, "That's the only reason I'm here, to do that."
Oh, I mean, Morecambe and Wise is another great British institution.
Yes, I'm almost more proud of being on the Morecambe and Wise show than almost anything, because it became a thing where if you were on the Morecambe and Wise show, you had arrived. You really had, you
Yeah.
know, and for that reason, I'm very proud of that. Yeah.
And they've done all them great skits with the newsreaders and all that kind of thing. Just absolutely super. I still watch Morecambe and Wise Christmas specials when they're on
Yeah.
TV every year
Yeah. Yeah.
because they never get old. Now we've just had a Morecambe and Wise. Tell me about working with the two Ronnies. Obviously, you'd already worked with Ronnie Corbett.
Mm-hmm. That was lovely too. Again, I don't have a very strong memory of that. Again, all these things happened a very, very long time ago. So sometimes my memory is a little dim, really. I do remember doing it. I don't remember anything spectacularly funny happening. I just remember, again, it was a very pleasant, lovely job. Lovely Jenny Agata was with me, playing my wife in that. And yes, I don't have a very strong memory of that. It was just a pleasant experience. I remember that.
Oh, well, still, working with both of them,
Yeah.
two British comedy team legends.
Yeah.
Is it right that you were considered for Life Force,
Who?
the film Life Force? I read somewhere that you were considered for the part. No, obviously not there. I had
I
to
don't.
ask you that one.
That's news to me.
Right. It was in trivia I'd found somewhere written about you. I
Okay.
thought, oh, I like Life Force. That's quite an interesting one. So that now brings us to 1992. Death becomes her. Um, Two women vie for a man and the secret of eternal beauty. And you play the Campers Christmas Chagall, who's basically, you're not in it very long, but you make, um, you know, you're one of the main reasons the film happens.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. That was a lovely. That was a big surprise, that movie, for me, because I did this audition and it was just me and the casting director in the room. A nice woman, famous one whose name I can't remember. Doesn't matter. And is in Hollywood, of course. And I do this reading, and she went, "That's very funny. That was very funny. I'm going to put you on tape." So we did it again. I did it on tape, and I'm looking around the room. There's pictures of this Michael Caine photograph and Terence Stamp photograph and a couple of other photographs. And I said, "I'm looking around the room here," and I said, "I don't have a chance for this. Look at who you've got coming in for this role." And she went, "Ian, you were very funny. I'm going to show it to Robert Zemeckis." Next thing I know is come and do it for Robert Zemeckis. So I go in and do exactly the same thing for Robert Zemeckis, and he laughs. And next thing I know, I've got the role, which is lovely because it was the kind of part that could have gone to a big star, but they didn't. They gave it to me, which was nice, and I had fun doing it. But again, you're quite right. I mean, I had 2 days on the movie. One day with my scene with Meryl Streep, and the next day in the huge room with all the crowd, where I do my little speech at the end. But apart from that, that's my part. It's what they call a cameo. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what was it like? Because obviously you play against Meryl Streep in your scene. How
Mm.
was it working with, opposite such a...
Magic. Because I said to her at one point, I said, "Would you mind if I," and she stopped me. I didn't get any further than that. She said, "Ian, this is your scene." She said, "All I'm doing is listening to you and reacting." She said, "This is entirely your scene. You do whatever you like," which was lovely. But when she came to her turn to speak, every single take we did, Meryl Streep did something different. I was stood there with my mouth open. Well, obviously not. I couldn't do it. Every single time, I thought, I said, this is an editor's nightmare because every single tape is brilliant. Every single take is wonderful.
Yeah.
How do they choose which one to use? No, she's a great actress, that woman. And generous and kind and lovely. And when we came to do the big scene at the end with the crowd, when Goldie was there and Bruce Willis was there and everybody was there, Meryl grabbed me and said, come and meet Goldie, come and meet Bruce." And she dragged me over and she did introductions and things. She was just a very charming, very personable, lovely, kind woman and a wonderful actress, as we all know.
And still, belting it out there and doing so well. And
Yeah.
what was Bruce Willis and Goldie like for your brief meeting?
Bruce Bruce wasn't interested at all, and why should he? He had other things to do. Hi, hello, shake hands, and that was it. And Goldie was nice. I said to Goldie Hawn, I said, I've got somebody who wants to send you their love. She said, oh, really? Who? I said, Nicky Henson. Her face was complete blank. I said, he played your husband in There's a Girl in My Soup. She went, oh my God, yes, yeah, oh, blah, blah, oh, lovely. Oh, send mine back. That was my meeting with them, really. It was very brief, but it was nice.
Oh, well, that's and I bet you still get a nice residual check from that because it's still a very popular movie.
Done reasonably well. I mean, listen, the residual checks these days are like $12. I mean, whoop-de-doo. Yeah, but no, over the years I've done quite well out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, because you still get it on the streaming sites now and again, and it's still a very popular film.
Very popular. Very popular. They run it all the time. Yeah.
Now I've got to ask you about Puppet Masters 5, because I love I've got one of the figures, Puppet Masters on Sado. How did you end up working for Charles Band and Full Moon, Battle and Puppets?
Well, it was Jeff Burr, the director. Jeff Burr was a Mike Reeves fan, like so many youngish directors. That's why. And he found me out, sought me out, and said, I really, really, really want you in my movie. I want you to play something. So that's how that came about. He died, Jeff Burr, a few years ago, but he was a lovely guy. And I met him again several times. He was always fun to be around and a real movie guy, a real passionate movie maker. Yes, and I think he made those films as well as he could, and given the budgets and given the scripts and things, I think he did a grand job. But that's how I got that part. It was Jeff Burr, the director, who got it for me.
And again, it's another one I've watched quite often, because I do like silly little puppets killing people movies.
Stand around, the amount of time waiting while they worked the puppets. Oh, it was a very, very long days of doing very little while all the puppets were the stars, and one had to recognize that really.
Well, that's true. I've got to talk to you about Murder, She Wrote. You're on 5 episodes over 5 different seasons. What was it like working opposite Angela Lansbury?
Well, Angela was another one of those lovely people who she had a rule. There were to be no auditions. Nobody ever auditioned for Murder, She Wrote. It was all done on word of mouth. And she knew who I was. When she heard I was in town, she got me in to do a role. And if she liked you, she would give you a role every year. So I did, over 5 years, I did a Murder, She Wrote every year. And it was the sort of thing where your agent would call up and say, Murder, She Wrote? And you say, yes. You wouldn't even bother reading the script. You'd be fine with it. Of course, working with Angela and her company was just a lovely thing. She was a very sweet woman and, again, really good at her job. I kept forgetting she was English. At one point, she had this enormous trailer, which was on the set, where she would go and rest. And she leaned her head out of the door and said, Ian, come and have a cup of tea. She's in a broad Birmingham accent. And I forgot she was, it was lovely working on Murder, She Wrote because it was just a lovely, quick little job you did, took a week to do, and you knew you were going to get nice residual payments from it as well, yeah.
Yeah, because, again, Murder, She Wrote is still watched off everybody. Yeah. And I believe they're thinking of doing a remake of it, which I don't think will work. It might, you never know.
Yeah, with revisiting these things often doesn't work, really, does it? I mean, yeah.
Well, that's true. And same with Diagnosis Murder with Dick Van Dyke. You've done a good few episodes of that as well. That'll have been a fun show to work on.
Well, I became friends, again, the producers of that, particularly a producer called Lee Goldberg. He was a fan of the Mike Reeves movies. A lot of it came from the Mike Reeves movies. And he got me in, and I did, I think, 3 of those. His joke, Lee Goldberg's joke, was always to make me play American. American in all 3 of those. And I used to say to him, Lee, please, I'm not good at this accent. He said, yeah, you're fine. Honestly, you're fine. Don't worry about it. I said, I think this is a gag. He said, well, it is sort of. I just want you to play America as much like what you do. So
that's brilliant.
Those were well. Those were fun. My favorite episode is when we're all pretending to be in a soap opera, a hospital soap opera. We're all actors playing actors, which is my favorite show of all of those Diagnosis Murders.
Because, I mean, you were in so many iconic TV shows over the years. 6 episodes stinting upstairs, downstairs. You were in the Avengers, the Linda Thorson years, playing Baron von Kutt, Robin of Sherwood as well, and The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. with Bruce Campbell. Sorry, that's because we were talking about Bruce Willis. Kung Fu Babylon 5, where you played an alien and had to get made up. That must have been an interesting one, was it?
I went in at 8 o'clock in the morning. By lunchtime, I was dead. So it was very nice. I had a nice long scene with that ridiculous makeup. And as I say, it took me, I think, 4 or 5 hours to complete my part. And a year later, my agent sent me 1,000 trading cards, those little cardboard things of my face and Babylon 5 underneath it. And they said, would you sign these, 1,000 of them? You get $1 per signature. And I thought, why would anybody collect this? Because I'm in it literally it took me a morning to shoot my role. All of a sudden, I'm a trading card from Babylon 5. It's amazing what people will collect, isn't it?
Sci-fi fans, you see, you see you've got a triple poo and they'll buy it off you.
Yeah.
Absolutely marvelous. And you were in Baywatch as well for an episode. Dharma and Greg, and so many more. Some we've not mentioned? What's been your favourites that you've done?
I always loved the sitcoms, the half-hour sitcoms I did, like Dharma and Greg, like Murphy Brown I did with Candice Bergen. Those are the loveliest jobs because the rehearsal period time is relatively short. The hours are easy. The rewards are great. And working with an audience, again, because I'm essentially a stage actor, is a pleasure. And I always thought the best job in the world would have been being on Friends, the TV series Friends. To be on Friends, that was the most lovely 5 or 6 years of one's life, frankly. And they end up being a multimillionaire at the end of it. Yeah, that would have been my absolute dream of a job, a sitcom, yeah.
That was another question I had written down for you. I know you're a bit of a Friends fan.
Yeah, I am. Yes.
So no, and it is still a great comedy. Just everything about it perfect.
No, but I don't think it's ever been bettered by anybody anywhere. I think it's the best it's ever been made. Yeah.
That and Frasier are about the two best American sitcoms for me. I think, and they've got so much watchability. And Frasier's so much of a farce. You'd have been excellent in that, to be honest.
That was fun. I'd have happy been doing any of those things. Yeah.
And jumping forward quite a few years, and we're nearly done, so you'll be happy for that. We Still Kill the Old Ways, 2014. Retired East End villain Charlie Archer is murdered by a feral street gang, and his brother Richie, returns to London to dish out the punishment. And I love this film. I've watched this film so much, and I watched it again last night.
Well, I had a lot of fun doing it because it's not my usual part.
It isn't.
I've played an East End gangster in my life, and I said to the director before we started, I said, "Are you sure people are going to believe me in this?" He said, "If you think of yourself as being the George Clooney of it, you're the kind of mastermind behind your gang. You're not necessarily have to be a tough guy. You've got people to do that for you. You're the clever one." I mean, oh, okay, they might buy that. They're not going to buy me being the tough guy, but they might buy me being the clever one. All right, great. That was great. I loved doing that. It was fun. It was nice. It was really nice to play. And I played opposite my old friend Nicky Henson, which was a joy again. That was wonderful. I liked that, and had a good team. And it was a very low budget movie, but I thought they did a grand job on it, and it came off very well, I thought.
The whole cast is excellent. And there's a few nice little nods with you driving the white car at the start, and which I thought was a nice little Saint nod. But it's an absolute excellent film, and you and the crew, the old heavies, James Cosmo and all that, are just excellent. And that was just it's a film and its sequel, which we'll talk about in a minute, that I revisit a lot because I just think they're a fun British action film.
Yes, I think it is too. Yeah, yeah.
And let's be honest, we all like seeing them street arseholes getting punished and
Well, it was like
and
getting some old guys out. That was something that Angela Lansbury used to do. One of her things was she liked getting retired actors and actresses, old Hollywood stars that once upon a time were Hollywood stars and long retired. She liked getting them out of retirement and making them come in and do a murder she wrote with her. And that's why you saw so many wonderful old faces that hadn't been on the screen for a while. All of a sudden, they'd pop up in Murder She Wrote. And in a way, Jonathan Softcott was doing that with us guys, with those movies, where we were all old men coming in and taking revenge on the young. Yeah.
and then after that, you've done the sequel. We Still Steal the Old Ways. The Archer Gang are back, and they're basically in prison, and they're in there to rescue. And what a cast again!
Yeah, and Patrick Bergin in there too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And again, such a fun, and you can tell obviously. I don't know if the budget was slightly smaller or because you can tell with it being mostly set in the prison and things like that, but it's still a superb watch.
Good. Glad you liked it.
Oh, and I'd love to see you return as Richie again someday.
I'm getting a little old.
Oh, I don't know. I know you're 82 at the moment, but you're an absolute legend, sir, and you're knocking it out the park still. So that was 2017. You get to revisit The Saint.
Yes.
With a new version of The Saint, but you play the Fixer, aka Xander, who's the villain of the piece, really. And the whole Templar ring thing was nice, and all the other little Saint nods to yourself. And obviously Roger Moore turns up as your boss.
Yeah, that was fun. Yes, and I got that. You know who got me that part? Nicolette Sheridan.
Right.
Nicolette Sheridan, who was an old friend, calls me up one day and she says, "Ian, I've just had a meeting about a project, nothing to do with what I'm talking about now, a different project. And this producer said he was remaking The Saint. And so this is Nicolette Sheridan, said to the producer, oh, you should get Ian Ogilvy in it. And he said, where is he around? And Nicolette said, yeah, he lives in Los Angeles. So that's how I got shoehorned into that show, really. They'd already shot a lot of it, and they found something for me to do, and they're going to stuck it in. And then they remade it a couple of years later, and that's when I played the villain. They actually reshot some of it and rewrote some of it, and redid some of it, and that the finished result was that. Yeah.
I mean, I've obviously been a big Saint fan. I'm surprised that you had nothing to do with the Val Kilmer one, which would have been nice to see you pop up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was a different ball of wax, really, wasn't it? That one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, I'm not sure it can be revived anymore. I mean, in a way, I think it's such an anachronistic character, really. I'm not sure they can go trying to get it up and running.
Yeah, because I know that was like a pilot for a TV show and it never took off.
Yeah.
But it's still a great, fun film. And the guy who played Simon Templar was great in it.
Oh, he was wonderful. Really, a nice guy too. Yeah.
And it was a shame that didn't kind of take off. And Eliza Dushak, I think I can't remember how to say her name. She was great in it as well. She'd been in Buffy and things like that. And I'm going to bring us kind of straight up to date, and it's coming out next year. What can we talk about? Nightfall, where you're basically playing Bond, an older Bond.
I'm playing old retired Bond, retired and reclusive in his country house, who is visited by his daughter, who's also she's on the run from the bad guys with her boyfriend, and that she comes to me to help her out of her mess, really. So yes, that's what that plot is, really. The old dad coming to the rescue. Yeah.
And I must admit, I'm looking forward to seeing it when it comes out next year,
Right.
because it looks and sounds again right up my street. So is it a fun one to make?
Yes, it was. I don't come in till halfway through the movie. Before that, it's her and Janine Southcott and Geoffrey Moore, Roger Moore's son, are really the lead. And I appear halfway through when they come flee to the countryside and come to my house. Yes, it was fine. I mean, I was on. I think it took me a whole week to shoot my role. Again, low budget, but things have changed so much. You know, in my day, we used to have. If you shot a gun, you had a gun that fired blanks. You pull the trigger and it went bang.
Yeah.
Now, of course, none of that. None of that. They're all made of rubber. And you point the gun, you have to pretend that the bang goes off, because then they put the bang in post.
Yeah.
They do it with AI. So that's a difference now, big difference. Other than that, really, it's the same kind of stuff. I said to the producers, I'm a little old to be running around. Please, not too much running. Or if I don't mind stumbling, but running I can't really do. So they were very kind to me about all that. And yeah, it was okay. It was a fine shoot. It was a fun shoot. I hope it works.
I'm looking forward to seeing it, I must admit. Now, I've mentioned quite a lot of your career. Well, not quite a lot, just a small snippet of your career, really. Is there anything that we've not talked about that you'd like to mention?
You mentioned in the preamble something about makeup. I don't have a makeup credit. I don't know how that crept in. Somehow,
yeah, you've got makeup credit for Michael Reeves' short film Intrusion.
Well, I suppose I might have been. Again, that was like these were schoolboy films, you know. So maybe I was the makeup artist as well as one of the leading men. I suppose that's true. Maybe I was the makeup man. Maybe I knew a little bit about it because I've been to RADA. Again, nowadays, nobody uses it. I haven't been wearing makeup on at all for the last 15 years. They don't do makeup anymore for men, not really. Yeah, maybe that's the answer to that. How funny that is. Yeah, no word.
Yeah, that's what I discovered in my... Now, how many books is it you've wrote now?
About eight. About 8 books, yeah, including a biography, which I think is currently available still. It's called Once a Saint, and you can get it all on Amazon, of course. So please go ahead and buy that, because all the stories you've heard here are all in that book.
Plus more. I'm because I've only just scratched the surface of the films you were in, and you also write children's books as well.
Yes. I had a successful series of children's books, which have been optioned for movies a couple of times, and I still live in hope that one day they will be made. But they've been optioned once by oddly enough by Robert Zemeckis. But a lot of the times, you know, people will buy a property like a book or a book series, and they'll put it on a shelf, and then years later you go, "Do you ever going to make this movie?" And they go, "Oh, no, we just bought it so nobody else could." No, it's very nice. I mean, I made a decent living on having my books optioned by movie companies. And even if they didn't make it, it still was pretty good. Yeah.
Well, I think we've covered as much as we can.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on my show. Thank you so much for doing it, Mr. Ogilvy. You're an absolute legend in my eyes, and a few of my friends have also agree with me there, I'm sure. So with that, I'll say good night.
All right, and thank you very much for having me on. It's been fun.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. Stick around. I'll do a quick sign out. Stick around. I'll have a quick word with you. But no, thank you for being on the show. And it's been a pleasure talking to the Saint.
Thank you.